but they don't present what they're saying in a nasty or rude way. And I like this guy. He wasn't nasty or rude. He was... Hey folks, welcome to the channel, Thinking Theology. I'm Don. I'm looking at, I don't even know who this gentleman is. I was grabbing videos off of YouTube just to cover, to analyze. I don't take a pro-creationist, anti-creationist, or atheist, Christian, Jew, whatever stance on things. I just look at the arguments being made. I've got my own views. I've got my own doubts. I've done a lot of work in the Bible. I've done scientific work too, but I'm basically a philosopher. So I analyze things from how well is the argument constructed, are the premises questionable, or how does the argument proceed? Are there assumptions being made that need to be cleared up? Those sorts of things. But it looks like Knechtle on why the Bible is accurate. So I don't know who this gentleman is. I don't know how long this is. I just grabbed it and I said, let's see how it goes. I do a lot of things that, Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens and others who are atheists, whomever they may be, but I also do things that are like pro-religion, and I look at those arguments as well. Let's see what this one's about. 2.5 minutes. All right, here we go.
How do you know, the Bible doesn't have these human aspects and it wasn't changed by religion over the years? How do you kind of have this trust in the Bible that it's purely from God and it tells the pure truth about Jesus?
There is absolutely no way that I or anybody else could show you that the Bible comes from God. How would you do that? See, that's where I was trying to point out to my Muslim friends here. See, their whole insistence, Quran's a word of God. You can't show that. The same way I can't show that the Bible's a word of God. You can't show that any book is from God. That's absurd.
All right, I'm with them so far. I did not expect this, but it's going to be turned around, I think, but let's see what his argument is.
Absurd. Totally absurd. Well, then what can you show? You can show that a text is historically accurate or not historically accurate. So, I have the evidence that the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are historically accurate. Does that mean that there are no manuscript variants? No, it does not. In fact, as Bart Ehrman puts in Misquoting Jesus, that best-selling book, there are between 300,000 and 400,000 manuscript variants in the New Testament, and there are only 140,000 words. So that means, guys, you've got 3 or 4 variants for every word. Okay, but here's what I get really honked off at New Testament professors like at this place. They fail to tell you that those 300 to 400,000 variants, manuscript variations, are found in 20,000 Greek manuscripts. 20,000, which means because the average Greek manuscript of the New Testament is over 400 pages long. These 300 to 400,000 manuscript variants are found in 2.5 million pages. Now just let that sink in. Those 300 to 400,000 manuscript variants, which means, no, we don't have the perfect New Testament. We have a plethora, though, of manuscript evidence that we have what those authors really wrote, okay? So, does that mean the Bible's a word of God?
All right, first, the so-called evidence, that's a pretty strong word, that we assume that those were original. They might be. The scribes might have copied it just so. But because later translations were worked off of earlier translations, if there was an error in a much earlier translation, and that was reproduced perfectly, you're going to have reproduced error perfectly. And I'm not sure how you reconcile that. It doesn't mean that the faith is wrong. It doesn't mean that the texts are wrong. It's just one of those things where, because you might even have 98% agreement on things. But I'm going to let him finish what he's saying.
No. Does it mean the New Testament is historically accurate? Yes. So, simply read the New Testament as history and ask yourself, does the historical evidence of the way Jesus lived, treated people, what he taught, like the Sermon on the Mount, the way he died, loving and forgiving his enemies as he nailed to wooden crossbeam, and the way he rose from the dead 3 days after he died, does that historical evidence point to him being credible, trustworthy, reliable, or not? and then you decide for yourself. You don't take it from me, you don't take it from someone who's indoctrinating you, and you definitely don't take it from a UT professor. You've got to do your homework, guys. You got to study the Gospels for yourself. They're only about 140 pages, so don't get weirded out by it. Read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and ask yourself, does the historical evidence of the way he lived, taught, died, and rose from the dead point to his credibility or not?
All right, I like his approach. That's fair enough. Don't take my word for it. Do your own work and go on and figure it out. The historicity or the such that it's very well known by historians, even those who don't believe that Jesus is the Son of God or whomever, that he existed as a man. Definitely, there's enough written about him that he existed. Then the contention always arises, was he just a lunatic? Did Paul promote some guy who had died because he couldn't change, because the gentleman who had died was dead, couldn't challenge the narrative that Paul was putting forth in promulgating Jesus, which sort of elevated Paul? Was Paul a disgruntled Pharisee who didn't get promoted within his sect, and he decided, screw these people, I'm going off the reservation here, so to speak, I'll make a name for myself? These are different ideas that have been put out there about Paul, but there's not a historical account, if you will, of the resurrection. There's a textual one, and that's what I presume that this is Cliff Knechtle on UT's University of Texas's campus saying, look, do your own work, guys. Can I prove it? No. Are there errors in the Bible? Yes. He cited Bart Ehrman. I've emailed a couple times with Bart, and Bart is not a lightweight either. I like the way Bart presents. He's got a good sense of humor. He was an avowed Christian. He's married to an avowed Christian. He's not, I think Bart at best is an agnostic, maybe atheist. People who are open-minded tend to change their mind on things, and different arguments present themselves. They leave themselves open. But they don't present what they're saying in a nasty or rude way. And I like this guy. He wasn't nasty or rude. He was, look, let the arguments speak for themselves. Read the gospel, see if they agree enough historically that it would convince you of their historical accuracy. And then you could go on and see if other parts of it speak in a deeper way to you. Fair enough. All right, I like it. How do you challenge that? So I'll leave it at that, folks. You guys can weigh in on this and what he said, and we'll go from there. Have a great day. I'll see you on another video, and keep thinking theology.